Hello there everybody, uxwbill here once again, and in between cleaning up my room, which is a boring job, I've been goofing around with all manner of audio equipment today here at the Floating Ground School of Audio Engineering. And what I'd like to talk about with this particular video is something that you won't see every day, a particularly unique piece of equipment. Even though it's just a pretty average CD player, it comes from something of an unusual and unknown brand. This is the Vector Research, come on Handycam, give you a little bit of light to work with. This is the Vector Research Compact Disc Player VCD-420R. And as you can see, it is just your average stereo component type CD player with a number of buttons on the front panel, a very generous display window where the characters are easy to read, and an infrared remote control center. The thing that makes this unit so interesting, amongst many other possible things, is the manufacturer. Vector Research made a lot of things in the 1980s, or at least had them manufactured on their behalf. And all of this equipment is pretty seriously overbuilt. It's pretty decent stuff, so if you ever come across something that says Vector Research on it, don't pass it up. They're probably best known for their VCRs. That is the most common Vector Research product I have seen. But they also made stereo receivers, compact disc players, and possibly some other components as well. And as I previously stated, there's not that much that makes this CD player special, but it does have at least one thoughtful design feature and a couple of other more fun features as well. So let's have a little demonstration here. Here's the unit powered on. And this was a Goodwill find, manufactured in the late 1980s, about 1987 or so I would guess. I gave a whopping $8 for it. I would say it's got fairly low hours on it, because the display panel is still nice and bright and very easy to read, and none of the characters demonstrate excessive wear or anything like that. However, it does have some issues, and I will be talking about one of those issues at least, possibly in a future kitchen table electronics repair installment. If you open the tray on this thing, more often than not, the tray goes right back in again. And that problem can be fixed in most cases, so I'll probably be talking about that in the future. In the meantime, it's certainly possible to load CDs. You just have to work on your timing a little bit. Now, it's no secret that practically any CD player out there today will show you the total disc time, ascending or descending counts of the track time for the track that you're currently on, or even the time elapsed or remaining so far while you're listening to a disc. But this thing goes a step further, as most CD players will not display the amount of time of a particular track until they're actually playing that track. But this unit does. If I go and skip tracks here, without having the transport engaged, its microcontroller actually displays the time remaining for each track. And for all you smart cookies in the audience, you might take a look at the times given for these tracks and see if you can do a cross comparison and figure out what CD this is. Well, you saw me insert it, so I guess that's kind of invalid. But you can still see here how, without having the disc in motion, the microcontroller has still noted the time of each particular track. You'll also notice the running track count along the bottom of the display, and because this disc has more than 16 tracks, there's a notation that says over right there to indicate that there are more tracks than the row of numbers along the bottom can possibly display. It has no problem with CDR discs. It doesn't read CDRWs, of course, and it has no problem accurately showing the time, the total time, over the 74-minute mark. However, as you can see, there are definitely limitations. Once the first 16 tracks are exhausted, it clearly no longer knows the time remaining for tracks 17 and up. There's another neat feature offered by this unit. You can program it to do repeat play, just like any other CD player, but there's a special function here known as an A-B repeat. Now, people who do DJing for their work or hobby will know what this is used for and what it does. This is not a proper DJ-style CD player, of course, so its A-B repeat function doesn't work quite as well as a proper DJ-type CD players would. A proper DJ-type CD player, such as the one that Weasel 2 HTM has, although it's currently malfunctioning, would feed the audio into a buffer memory so that you never hear a stop in the loop that has been set up. But the A-B repeat section lets you establish a start and stop point that the player will loop, and it will loop endlessly until it's interrupted or it breaks, one of the two. The other thing that this thing can do, it can isolate a track for playback if you only want to hear one track by pressing the single button, at which point a little number 1 lights up in the display there next to the time, and the calendar display along the bottom goes blank except for the currently selected track, which is the only track that it will play. Let's have a little bit of a demonstration of the A-B repeat looping feature, because that's kind of fun to play with, even though it's not a really great implementation and you couldn't use this thing as a substitute for a DJ type CD player. Yes, I am definitely easily amused. It's pretty easy to use the A-B repeat or looping feature on this particular CD player as well as many others. You basically get to the track where you would like to establish the loop, and then you navigate to the particular time within the track where the desired content is located, although you can see this thing just made a very bizarre jump to track 8. So maybe its firmware has a few interesting kinks in it. We'll see here. I'll get back to the point where I want to be, navigate to about the point in time where I want to be, and then I press the A-B button to start the loop. I press it again to conclude the loop. When I do that, the player will start looping. But as you can see, there's definitely a delay while the servos track back to the beginning of the loop. This can, of course, be used to come up with some very clever tricks.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
I wonder if you sat there and let that go long enough and spliced it together in an interesting way, if Content ID on YouTube would still pick it up. But that's an experiment for a future day. Now I'm going to oblige Mr. Tone-Loc. There are, of course, a few other handy features as well. If you wanted to use this CD player with a timer, such as an audio timer, you're in luck. Now, some fancier CD players have a switch that actually allows you to select a mode of operation suitable for use with a timer. This one just automatically assumes that if there's a disc in place when the power goes on, it's going to be played. Another feature supported by this unit that has more or less gone by the wayside in newer CD players, although it still shows up in professional or higher-end units, is the concept of disc index marks. Most everybody who has ever listened to an audio CD in their life is very familiar with the concept of a track. But there is another means of dividing music on a CD, and that is the index mark. And this comes in handy for music like symphonies, where the various movements could all be part of one track, but they would have different index marks. So each whole symphony is contained within a track, but the index mark and the index seek buttons, if your player is so equipped, could be used to move to the particular portion of the music you want to hear if the disc has been appropriately prepared. Most discs do not make use of the index mark feature, unfortunately. Thank you for watching, and feel free to leave a comment if you have one.